I want to invite Mr. Tominiyi Oni, the HR Director of Friesland Campina, for his keynote address. Please, let's put our hands together for Mr. Oni.
I'm not going to give any keynote speech. I'm just going to read out something to you. I'm a very spontaneous person. So on one of the platforms, I got a message yesterday night, and I just want to seek your indulgence to read it out. It will take me some time to get it, but it's basically about an adult who relayed a story when he was young, and it's all about humility, but it's connected to attitude. It's also connected to skills. So I'll look for it, and then I'll read it out. It's something that happened in India a couple of years ago, or maybe many years ago, and the person who then narrated the story had become an executive vice president in a global organization. So he says, I was a freshly minted graduate of a leading B school and wore its stripes proudly on my shoulders. I was to join a British multinational in one of their plants in Gomia, Bihar, as a management trainee. They chose only the best, and I was full of it, all puffed up. The night train from Calcutta would reach Gomia in the morning. I had a letter that said that there would be a car to pick me up from the station and take me to the guest house. The coal-fired engine creaked up to the station, and I alighted with my canvas hold-all. Yes, we had such things in those days. There was not a soul in sight to receive me. I felt let down. I heaved the luggage on my shoulder and came to the exit. There I saw a nice car. The driver in a khaki shorts and a white-colored t-shirt was walking towards the car. Aha, my driver. There he was. I went up to him and brusquely asked him to open the trunk and keep my luggage. He asked me in Hindi who I was, and I introduced myself. All this in a condescending way, and asked him to take me to the guest house. He said he would be happy to drop me. The driver heaved the luggage in, opened the rear door, and had me seated. He asked me if I was comfortable. This was getting better. Throughout the ride, he asked me questions about my family, etc. In a kind sort of way, I responded in monosyllables, irritated with the driver who spoke too much. Near the guest house, he alighted, and a couple of the staff ran up to the car and saluted me. I thought I saw some exchange with the driver, and then respectfully they carried my luggage. I waved out to the driver, who wished me the best in my new job. The next day was a big day. I was to meet the big daddy of the place, the chief executive, Dr. S.K. Verma, and I was nervous. I went in early to the factory. His secretary ushered me into a corridor that led up to the room. I knocked on the door and walked into the large office. The big man in his overalls had his back to me, and as he turned, I recognized the man. He was the driver in the factory clothes. So that's the story I got. And then he went on. I burst out, "Hey, what are you doing here in this office?" Then he gave me a broad smile, and in chest English said he was Shivan Verma, the CEO, and asked me to take a seat. I choked, and I could have died in that instant. My feet were all jelly, and I apologized profusely for my behavior and was at a loss for words. He said that he had come to the station to see of a friend, and he had seen me and wanted to be of help, and played along, for he knew I had mistaken him to be a driver. He offered me tea and had a long conversation. He said, outside of work, one should not wear their education, but only should use them. And he never referred to the incident again, almost as if it never happened. As I walked away, I learned the greatest lesson in humility. So the guest house staff were actually saluting him, not me. My ego came crashing down, shoulders hunched, weighing heavily with lessons learned. I exited his office. Humility is playing a role, any role, whatever the role may be, even if this were that of a driver. Dr. Verma never referred to these incidents ever, not even in any informal chat. He was unknowingly driving home a lesson in humility. Be humble. I don't know if you followed me in that story. Now this is, I don't know, maybe this will be the 100th story that I will read on humility. And when I look at my career, yes, I may be old when compared to you, but my career has not, I'm just in my 23rd year. When I count my youth service, my internship, plus my real experience. But in 23 years, I know some people will crucify me for that. I have worked in 8 organizations. And only one of them is indigenous Nigerian at the federal parastatal level. The rest are multinationals and internationals. I've seen people sacked or terminated. When I put the percentages together, I think 75% of people I've seen terminated in organizations where I worked or I consulted for were because of attitude. Only 25%, in my own estimate, were because of performance. So when this topic came up, I just said it's very apt, especially for youths of today. Because almost like generation, there's a generational gap and difference in perception about things. So I think it's getting to a point where people feel, well, if I have the education, which is the knowledge, and I have the skill, which is maybe the additional training, then I can go all the way. But it's true that I can go all the way, but it's also true that that attitude can bring me down crashing. There was a global CEO of an oil company who was brought down when he became CEO, not when he was senior manager or officer. And it was not about performance. It was about his behavior off the job. And what they said was, if people get to know what happened, it will affect the image of our company. You need to leave now. So that's why, by all means, we need to get knowledge. By all means, we need to be skilled. But by all means, we need to maintain the right attitude. And I say this with all sense of seriousness. I have 3 kids myself. The first one is 18, a girl. Second one is 16, just turned 16 this month, a girl. And the third one is 11, going to 12, a boy. And when I see what goes on around them, I read their chats. Sorry, my apologies. I read their chats once in a while. With their permission, I follow them on Facebook. I left Facebook. I had to go back because of them to stay in touch. I realized that one of the things that affects youths of today is what we call the peer pressure, but also the people they look up to. So when I saw this, my daughter, who is 16 now, when she was 14, when I checked, I saw some of the people she was following, or role models, and one of them was Lady Gaga. So I don't judge. I didn't know about her. I just went and did my research. And then I called her to say, tell me about Lady Gaga. She only could tell me about her songs. Then I said, oh, there's one song that she sang, Alejandro. I saw all of this on Google. I said, that song is not in English. Do you know how you can translate that song? We went through it together. And then she said, no, Daddy, no. What is no? Just tell me what the song says. It says, Son of God, don't call me. I am not your own. I am not your child. Leave me alone. Alejandro. Alejandro is Son of God. Jesus. Leave me alone. I am not your child. And you sing that. So overnight she went and removed that from our Facebook page. Now, this session is all about, we share our experiences, we share our ideas, but again, it doesn't mean that we have the best experiences. We just put it on the table. It's left for you to be able to pick and choose. We drop the data on the table. It's left for you to slice and dice. Depending on where you're going, you pick the ones that you feel will get you to the destination. First, if I speak to the topic itself, skill, knowledge, and attitude are the three key elements involved in learning. So, you cannot say that you are involved in a course of learning without the three coming to play. Now, you may be the most brilliant person, which means sometimes you don't even need to be in class. You don't even need to listen to the podcast. You don't even need to attend the WebEx or the webinar, because it comes to you naturally. But it's going to get to a time when you will need to read, when you will need to interact, when you will need to call up your reserves to summon a difficult or a challenging scenario or circumstance. So I give you some statistics. I picked this from the US and also from Nigeria. In 2014, 35% of employers who reported difficulty in getting candidates to fill some vacancies said one of the reasons was that the applicants they got lacked the required technical skills. 35%. Now, when they looked at small businesses, because the big businesses, they can only employ maximum of 15%. It is the small businesses who really do the large employment. All those businesses that my brother will put together, my sister will put together, those are the ones that employ 75% of the population. NMPC and the federal government and Shell and Chevron cannot do more than 15%. Those small businesses complained that 47% of them complained they reported few or no qualified applicants. There are graduates and there are people, but they said few or no qualified applicants. 19% cited lack of soft skills, communication, team working, just the manner to be able to interact with people. And like I said, in my own experience, 75% of people who have lost their job is because of attitude. I know of people who stole money in bank A, removed that bank from their CV, then went and worked in a non-banking institution for 5 years, and then went back and joined another bank at GM level. But because we've been trained to do background checks, we get it at the end of the day. Because it's behavior and it's like smoke, it seeps out no matter how much you cover it. And we realize that for many young people, we even have bigger challenges these days. Who can guess for me in this audience how many times a modern phone user touched their phone in 24 hours? That's in one day. How many people do young people touch their phones? Anybody hazard a guess? 15,000 times? So it's almost like every second. Some people don't even get to sleep. I don't know, maybe it's because of the telecommunication companies who are offering some free credit at night or something. So you keep hearing people, talking or chatting. But it's also one of the greatest distractions that we've seen in the workplace. So we do assessment and recruitment, and we bring in young people into organizations. And because they went through that assessment, they are very good. Because the assessment is designed to pick only the best. It's very difficult. In fact, in one of the tests, you do a test, you do a presentation, you do case study, a lot of things. In the test, the highest I've ever seen is 11/20. And that person must be first class or very, very sound 2-1. That's what we used to confirm. Unless the question has leaked. But many of these guys then come into organizations, and under 6 months, some of them are fizzling out, especially the boys, the guys. So, and it gets, yes, I'm a lover of diversity, so I'm always looking for more ladies, because I work in a sector where it's man-dominated. So I'm always looking for more ladies to come. Even when they're pregnant, I tell my colleagues, tell me your schedule, because pregnancy is not a disease. So we bring them in. But the boys are always distracted. After 6 months, the ladies are performing better than the guys. So everybody wants the ladies in their team. And we discovered that for the guys, 2 things distract them. The babes and their phones. And they are connected. So we try to tell them, look, focus on your career. Once you resume in the morning, 8 o'clock, stop all the phone, all the personal calls, all the chats. When you are on lunch break, 12 to 1 or 1 to 2, put on your phone, answer all the messages, make all the calls, shut it down again after 1 hour. Focus on your job from 1 to 4 or from 2 to 5. And when you close again, put it on. But it's not their fault. They have grown up in a generation that is called multitasking. Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Snapchat. Which are the other ones? So many. So many. But those things are designed for our good and for our elevation and for our progress. But we have allowed them to become retrogressive. So yesterday I just had a discussion with a young man to say, I'm so sorry, next week Friday is your last day. We've been having a discussion for 3 months and he's not been able to step up. But the ladies are stepping up. So I don't know whether there's something different in the brain formation of the ladies and the guys these days. And when they come in, they don't think that it's a competition. So they just go on their own tangent. I don't want to go into a definition of skill, knowledge, and attitude. But I like to call up, I think, a verse in the Bible. I think it's in Proverbs. And it's one of those verses that I always like to use for variety of reasons. Because it fits into different parts of life. If I remember correctly, it says, with wisdom, a house is built. With knowledge, it is established. With understanding, it is filled with good treasures. Basically, skill, knowledge, attitude. Pure and simple. Anybody who understands that principle and use it across any part of their life will always find a balance and success. Because what is wisdom? Knowledge is straightforward. What is wisdom? Application of knowledge. Skill. What is understanding? Your attitude, your behavior. So if that verse says it's wisdom that you can use to build the house, build yourself, build your relationship, build your career, then that's one thing. If it says knowledge is the one that you use to establish it, which means nobody can, it says that, seest thou a man diligent in his work, he shall not stand before mere men. He will stand before kings and princes, ministers and presidents. And that diligence is based on knowledge, and that knowledge leads to skill, which is the wisdom, which is the understanding. But again, the wisdom part is also about the attitude. If I get to this place, like that guy, somebody is at the station, he's picking you. It happened to me actually in Norway. The very first taxi I took outside the airport going to Shell in Norway was driven by a professor. And he chatted me up with this. If I had gone to that place with the mentality of the Lagos taxi driver, I would not have made that friend. Eventually I learned that he just did that for leisure. Of course, you know they can get very lonely sometimes. Children are gone out of home, whatever. The guy just picks his car, drives around. He's a taxi driver for 2 hours, 3 hours. But the kind of relationship and the kind of knowledge that I get from that guy till today marvels me. If I had looked at him as one old man driving a taxi, that would have been the end of the story. So, at the end of the day, skill is important, knowledge is important, attitude is important. All of them are very important. None can be excused for the other. So, for example, I may have a very good attitude. I may be humble, because I like humility a lot. I may be respectful. But if I don't have the knowledge and the skill, I will still not be given the project. Or if I'm given, I will have to sublet the project. And if it's at work, then definitely I will not get that position unless I go to study for it and develop myself in it. So they are all important. None should be excused for the other. However, attitude can, Warren Buffett, one of the world-renowned investors, he says it takes 25 years to build a reputation. It takes 1 minute to bring it down, to pull it down. So that if we should guide our reputation with all jealousy. So, and that's where the attitude thing comes in. And if I speak with youth, yesterday we had a platform where we were discussing, and I said, oh, I just put my second daughter, I just asked her to go and take public transport. Have I done the wrong thing? Because we were talking about how we're developing, how we're growing our children these days. That what we went through, we are over-pampering them, blah, blah, blah. And then people started, no, we are not over-pampering them. The world today has changed also. And then somebody told me, well, if anything happens, you will not be able to forgive yourself. I said, like what? If there's any accident. I said, but if I drive, there could be an accident. I said, no. Do you drink Agbara bitters before when you drive? Do you drink Shekpe versus this and that? I said, that's what the typical Danfo driver drinks in Lagos every morning before they start work. And then I recall that my wife, who is a chief matron, works in an emergency and trauma unit. And every day she comes back from work, she tells us stupid things that lead to accidents. Then I recall that on a program that I attended in Manchester Business School, a nurse who had been a nurse for 30 years in trauma converted, got a PhD, and then became the facilitator of a business class called Program for High Value Managers. And when they share their experiences, then I realized, I said, my God, so where are we going to draw the line? But somebody then said, okay, let's say, for example, something happens on the street. You are out far away from your home, in your car, but it's a major catastrophe. How are your children that you're over-pampering going to respond? Versus the guys who are smart, who are street smart. Your guys are book smart. Those guys are street smart. Who's going to survive? at the end of the day, we concluded that we needed a balance of the two. You cannot continue to raise your kids as if they will not relate to those guys. In actual fact, those guys may end up becoming the local government chairman because they are the ones who can fight, snatch ballot boxes, fight naked, and win the election. And your kids that you have raised to be book smart would have to relate with them one way or the other. So, as I conclude, it's a balance between skill, between knowledge, between attitude. It's also a balance when you go back again to the Bible, because it says what is really knowledge. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So if we go round and round, when I see things happening in developed countries, each time I go, I can't fathom it. So I realize also that knowledge is not all in all. Understanding skill is not all in all. It gets to a point where if you don't have the fear of God, you would cross some boundaries. That's why majority of atheists, those who don't believe in God, are those who have PhDs, masters, BSc. Not many guys who did not go to school. The percentage of atheists is higher amongst educated people. So when I recall the discussion that Paul had in the Bible, and that emperor said, you want to make me mad with too much learning. And I realized that for some people, it can actually get to that extent. And that's why you can see people do rubbish things today that you can never fathom in your life. So, skill and knowledge could get one to a level where it's so high that you can come crashing. With attitude, you can have the altitude to continue to sustain yourself till you get to where you're going. Thank you.